Welcome to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle, with your host, Rob Schulz. Rob is the founder and president of Schulz Wealth. All opinions expressed by Rob and his guest are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Schulz Wealth. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Please refer to our website for more information.
Welcome everybody to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle. This is your show if you're a business owner looking to transition. And man, I'm excited about today because this is something that when people sell their business, okay, and then they come and talk to me about it, their life changes. A lot of times they haven't had this kind of money. And one of the things that always comes up is, I really want to be charitable with this, but I just don't know how. So today in the house, I have Amanda Lewis with us, who we've known each other for a while. And then you've brought in Stan Ninemire. And Stan, you live in Houston now, but you're traditionally a Fort Worth guy.
Yep.
Okay. Well, good to have y'all. Thanks for coming in. This is great because this is the kind of stuff that folks that just kind of have a business and built it from scratch, they just don't know a lot about. So Amanda, give me a little bit of background on you. How did you get into this great work of connecting business owners or people with funds with charitable causes?
You bet. Well, I've been with the foundation a couple of years now, but I've worked with the North Texas Community Foundation for many, many years.
Okay.
I came from the nonprofit side, so I worked for some of the very best nonprofit organizations in Tarrant County, Fort Worth Zoo, Cook Children's, Museum of Science and History, everybody's favorites. And so I was frequently the beneficiary, the recipient of grants coming through fund holders who have funds at North Texas Community Foundation. So Rose Bradshaw, our CEO, and the team and I have known each other for a long time and have worked together with donors who wanted to contribute to organizations. And so after many years of conversation, we decided it was a great time for me to come over and jump to the other side and really help people get established in their giving as they come into perhaps a windfall event through the sale of a business, or really any other opportunity where they just decide they want to be more thoughtful and strategic about their charitable giving.
Great. So it kind of came from the charity side. And Stan, where'd you come from?
So I have a fairly traditional story as far as I was CPA, worked for Price Waterhouse, graduated from North Texas State, moved to Fort Worth, been in Fort Worth for over 35 years, and followed the sort of standard track of went from public accounting into private practice. Was the CFO, COO of a public company for a little bit over 25 years, and retired. And actually, in retirement, I was sort of wondering, what can I do to sort of give back to the community? And I thought about working for a hospital. I was really sort of wanting to see how could I use my skills to do something good. And this position, CFO position, came up at the Community Foundation. So started working at the Community Foundation a little bit over 6 years ago now. And have recently, as you pointed out, transitioned. My family lives in Houston, so we have 2 new grandkids. And so,
you got to follow the grandkids.
So of course, Mom, my wife, wanted to be down there with Grandma wanted to be with grandkids. And so, we just recently relocated down there. And in doing so, I transitioned my position at the foundation from CFO to being the Chief Investment Officer. So now I'm still working with the foundation, particularly on transactions. My for-profit background was growing businesses through acquisition. So I did a lot of transactions. So worked with lots of attorneys, lots of CPAs, lots of business owners, selling their business. So I've been on both sides of transaction work, looking at sale of business. So that's my primary responsibility with the foundation. I also oversee our investment portfolio. So
okay,
so
all right, something I know a little bit about as well. That's very good.
Sure,
that's very good. So this is really cool. So from the nonprofit side, Amanda, Stan from the profit side. So it's kind of meeting in the middle, which is kind of where North Texas Community Foundation is. It's kind of connecting, I would think, people with funds that want to do good with it, with those great organizations that do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's kind of start with, let's say that I'm a business owner and I'm contemplating, maybe selling my business. I've been charitably minded in the past, but haven't really done a whole lot of structure. What are some ideas? What are some things that maybe I should be thinking about as I march towards the finish line?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
So the key is, and most of your viewers are probably aware of this, but key is planning. So whenever we're talking to people, we always encourage people when they're thinking about selling a business, and they also are interested in doing some charitable giving through the sale of their business. It's a great opportunity to get together with their CPA, their lawyers, and have a conversation with us, because we can help assist them in looking at the process and getting ready for that sale of the business, so that a portion of the business can actually be given directly to the foundation just prior to the sale of the business happening. And then when the sale happens, the cash comes in, then that cash comes into a fund at the community foundation. And then that business owner can then spend that money through making charitable grants to local charities.
Okay, so great. So basically, and we talk a lot about that team, that transition team, which is what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Your attorney, your accountant, your financial planner, and then yet we have another member of the team potentially, if you're charitably minded, and that's y'all. That and getting that team together prior to an actual transaction is super important, because of one thing you just said, Stan. You're talking about not selling the business and then taking the proceeds and being charitable with it. You're talking about the potential of actually moving the stock itself into a charitable structure prior to the sale. Exactly. Why would I want to consider doing that as a business owner?
So, and that's a great question, because it so often, it usually happens once or twice a year. Somebody comes into us and they have a big pot of money, and they say, I just sold my business. I want to come to the foundation and open up a fund. And we say, great, that's great, sure. But inside, I'm crying, because I'm wishing I wish we'd talked prior to your sale, because you could have saved the capital gains that you paid on that transaction. You could have saved that tax money that you paid to the government, because you were using after-tax dollars to make a charitable donation. When if you actually gift the equity portion prior to the sale, then that gets excluded from the sale. So there's no tax, no capital gains tax to the donor on that. It comes to the tax is really community foundation, but we're a tax exempt entity, so we don't end up paying any capital gains tax on that. And the other key is that the donor gets to value that at fair market value. So they get a charitable deduction at the fair market value of their business at the time of sale.
Yeah, not their basis.
Not their basis.
Fair market value at that point. Sure. So that's a huge benefit, and we're familiar with that because we gift stock all the time. Publicly traded stock. We're talking about the stock of a closely held company.
Right.
Y'all are able to handle that. So that's obviously a huge benefit. But then what happens then? So I've decided that I'm donating this, but I don't even know who I want it to be donated to. I haven't been able to do all of that due diligence to really understand where this money can make the greatest impact. Amanda, how do we deal with that?
Sure. So the client's able to come in and start a fund. And what's been really neat, especially as you talk about family businesses and selling, is that oftentimes they start one fund, sometimes they start many funds.
What do you mean by a fund? So what's a fund?
Sure. So our format at the Community Foundation is in funds. One most popular is the donor advised fund.
Okay.
And you've probably heard of a donor advised fund before. There's other entities that also use that vehicle, and it's just an extremely flexible tool that we use for people to be able to make grants out of their fund to their favorite charities. Any 501c3 in the United States or church can be given a grant out of their fund. And so they're able to start this fund. And we have fund holders who come to us and say, I once gave to, this organization because my neighbor asked me to. And that was really neat, but I really want to figure out what drives me or what has impacted my family. And we are able to really kind of take them down a path of exploring what that means for them, connecting them with local nonprofits so that they can learn more about it themselves and see where those connection points are, and then come up with working with the nonprofit and the donor, help them come up with a real strategy for their giving, whether it's over a short period of time or a very long period of time. We have donors with plans that may stretch out over 20, 30 years and beyond, or they may choose to grant out over a short 1 to 5 year period. And they actually will select an investment portfolio based on the time horizon that they intend to give.
Gotcha. So going back to the tax side, Stan, so, I was able to take this full deduction in the year that I sold my business, which was obviously a year when I had a lot of taxes.
Right.
But then I didn't have to necessarily go distribute that money or to even decide what I was going to do with it. I dropped it in this fund, and even if I don't do anything with it that year, right, I still get the full deduction.
You're exactly right, and that's so important. And that's one of the key advantages of working with the foundation is that you can get your deduction when you match your deduction with your income event. So you get that full use of your deduction. And then you have the ability, think of it like a charitable savings account. So you put all your money in 1 year, and then you can determine how long those grants are going to be strung out over. You can spread it over a number of years. And you also have the flexibility. You don't have to give it to just one entity.
Yeah.
You can give it to, 5, 10, however many.
You change your mind.
Yeah. So it gives you a lot of the flexibility of time. That's the key. Is that it gives you, because so a lot of times when people sell a business, it may happen towards the end of the year, and they're trying to. There's so many changes when you sell your business. Your identity's tied up in that business, and you and your family, the seller of the business is trying to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their life. Suddenly they sold their business, huge changes.
Yes, there are a couple other things going on too.
It's just like a huge, and it can be a very stressful time. That's the nice thing about working with the foundation. You can put it in there, and then you don't have to worry about it. Then you can think about it later the next year, and that's happened a number of times, right, Amanda? Where people come to us, particularly after sell the business, say, I'm overwhelmed, and I just need some time to think about this, and we're able to work through whatever time horizon that donor needs to work with. And the other key thing, Rob, I want to say is, people come to the foundation for our service, and that's what Amanda was pointing at, is that we have people that are really plugged into the local nonprofits. Any kind of philanthropic interest that somebody might have, if they're interested in veterans or child welfare or some kind of medical situation. We have people that specialize in connecting them with those kinds of activities so that they can meet that philanthropic need.
I think that's absolutely huge. I mean, my experience in working with folks in this situation is that they really are they don't know yet, and there's a process. There's a process that we like to use with a business owner as they're starting to sell their business. There's a process they ought to go through with you, Amanda, when they get ready to go through that discovery of where they feel like their money can be best used. Can you go further into detail about that, about how you can help these families and how that works?
Absolutely. Well, and what we find too with people who have sold their business, they're entrepreneurs. They approach life in that way. It doesn't stop when they sell their business. They want to approach their giving as well in a thoughtful, strategic. They want to see their dollars make an impact and know that they're really going to, moving the needle for an organization that means something to them.
Yeah. So how do you help us feel comfortable that that's what we're doing with our money?
Absolutely. So we work with them to really establish what is it going, what kind of impact are you looking to make?
Okay.
Whether it is, kind of a direct give to the food bank. They want to directly impact those in need who are, food insecurity is a huge issue. And so if they want to see just kind of, give the dollars to the food bank, we know it goes straight to those in need. That's one way.
And then you're going through and you're vetting this as well for them.
Absolutely.
And making sure you're doing the due diligence for them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
As Stan mentioned, we have a great team that's closely connected to the nonprofit community here in North Texas. And so through ongoing conversations, they also are organizations that apply through our 7 grant cycles a year. So that's another way that we're really able to keep up with the leadership that's in place via board and staff.
Okay.
We get to see their financials. We really get to ensure that they are doing the best work in North Texas. And we're lucky because we have thousands of really incredible nonprofits here in North Texas that are doing great work, and that number is growing. But we're just hugely connected to them. If we ever see something that we're kind of not so sure about, we do mention it to the fund holder and just say, I think there's been some changes at that organization and we wanted to make you aware of them. Always it's the fund holder's discretion if they choose to continue supporting an organization. But we're just in tune and constant communication, and we know who's doing the best work. We also hear about really big projects. So for a fund holder that may want to give to a large capital campaign or just an ongoing programmatic sort of drive at an organization, they can give over many years in larger increments. And so we're able to kind of walk them through what that looks like and help them decide if that's the type of giving that they like to do.
Great. So a real good resource, especially here locally. One question. So let's say that I do want some of the money to go internationally somewhere or something like that. How do you all support or allow for that?
Well, we work with a team that is able to kind of make sure that they, forgive me, I'm not going to pause here.
Oh, yeah.
We basically work with intermediaries.
Okay, sure.
And so as long as the organization, typically it's usually easier if they have a stateside office. That's much easier.
That would make sense.
But when they don't, we have an intermediary team that can work to make sure the same due diligence is in place.
Excellent.
It's a few more steps. It takes a slightly bit more amount of time, but we're able to make those international grants happen.
Okay.
And I can expand a little bit on that because, so for the IRS purposes, we're required to make contributions only to qualified charities.
Right. And internationally, that basically doesn't exist.
And so that's why there are companies that specialize in qualifying potential gifts to a foreign entity to meet the requirements for the IRS.
Okay.
So that when Amanda was talking about intermediaries, that's what she's talking about. And so it's a process that we go through, and that's what's required by the IRS in order for us to make those grants. And we've done grants to Japan, to Africa, to some research in the UK. I mean,
Sure.
So it's a small part of what our giving is, but that's a service that we can provide for donors that they couldn't get in a commercial bath.
Well, and what you just mentioned, just being able to, you're coming in and just making sure that we're checking all the boxes,
right?
And that's a huge benefit.
Yeah,
it's excellent.
And the other thing, since we're talking about foreign giving, I do want to emphasize what really drew me to the foundation was what we do in the 5 counties surrounding Tarrant County.
Absolutely, yeah.
85% of our money is focused, right here in this community. So it's benefiting the nonprofits in our community. So, here in Mansfield, in Tarrant County, Parker County, surrounding counties, North Fort Worth, we don't go into Dallas per se, but we go as far as Arlington. But anyway, but again, that's why we're called a community foundation. Our focus is really making donations as much as possible with local community.
For sure, and there's flexibility there, but you're exactly right. There's plenty of need around here.
Oh yeah.
Years ago, my church, we used to send youth out to different places to do mission work. We go to sometimes before, a long time ago, to Mexico, go to Muskogee, Oklahoma, different places. And then we were like, well, wait a second, there's a lot of need right here. And for many, many years now, that mission has been more, here within our own communities. And there's just a huge amount of need. There's no question. And I know that y'all probably have some really cool stories about folks being able to meet those needs. So kind of tell me, do you have any good stories where you took a family that maybe sold a business and helped them kind of find their mojo?
Sure. Just at the end of last year, very, very end of last year, as I mentioned to you, most folks do come to us at the end of the year.
Okay.
We work quickly.
And y'all love that, right? We love
We
it.
do. We love that. But if they're thinking about doing anything in, let's say, September, October, we also love to hear from them then.
All right.
But we do. We work very quickly at the end of the year to open funds. And then we are able to circle back right after January 1 to really dive in with the family. And in one case in particular, last year, at the very end of the year, very hardworking family had sold a portion of their family business. They were going to continue working in the business under the new ownership, but they were able to establish 3 large funds through this kind of windfall event that happened to their family. They set the fund for themselves and 2 of their grown children. The patriarch and matriarch of the family really needed time. They needed time to think.
Okay.
They were not sure what this meant for them, this windfall meant for them personally, but they knew that they wanted to do good, and they were really quite overwhelmed with all that meant. And fortunately, their CPA really encouraged them to come to us and help them through that. And then they had one of their grown children knew right away that she wanted to provide a vehicle for her children's school. And that was a need she heard about, and she wanted to make that happen. So very quickly, we were able to send that grant to the child's school and make that happen. And then conversely, with her parents, they just needed the time. And so with our donor relations team, that family is working to determine the gifts that they've made in the past. We call checkbook giving. Their neighbor might ask them to give to a certain cause, or they might support a fun run or what have you that's benefiting a great organization. But they really hadn't, jumped feet first into what philanthropy meant for them. And so our donor relations team is currently working to define that, to do some kind of test gifts with different organizations, find out where they want to volunteer their time, because that's another thing. As people sell their business, they have more time to give. They often see that their giving financially goes in line with their giving of time, and they're able to just really connect in a just greater level with the organizations. And we encourage that. So we have very active givers. With the donor advised fund, flexibility is one of the things that you mentioned. And there's a tremendous amount of flexibility, whether it's that, the first 5 years you have the fund, you might want to give to another organization. And then in 5 years down the road of giving actively, you might want to switch gears or bring another organization into the fold. That's one of the ways. But also, there's no minimum requirement to distribute out of your fund each year.
And that's different than like a more traditional foundation, correct?
Exactly.
You don't have a 5% limit, requirement.
So even more flexibility, less paperwork as well, and all of that. But one of the things that when people talk about wanting to do a foundation, they're thinking not only about the charitable good that they can do, they're thinking generationally. Mm-hmm. Tell me how that works within a donor advised fund. Like maybe it's because I want to be charitable, but what I really want is I want my kids to do that too, right? And then for them to be able to eventually take that over.
Exactly.
How would that work?
So there's a variety of ways. With the family I just mentioned, they went ahead and established multiple funds for themselves and their grown children.
Okay.
So from the get-go, their grown children had a fund. Otherwise, setting up successor advisors. So upon the fund holder's passing, their successor advisor, whether it's their child, a good friend, another family member, can serve as their successor advisor. And we're finding more and more that those fund holders are bringing their successor advisors into the conversation earlier on than just mom and dad have passed, now I'm an advisor on this fund and I've got to figure out how to give out of it.
So if they wanted to, I mean, they could almost like make those decisions as a family, just like they would as a foundation board.
Ideally,
Yeah.
during their lifetime is when we want people to be actively engaging in conversation amongst their family.
Sure.
We do, one of the other things that we do well because of the way we're structured, we're able to really act on a fund holder's behalf after their passing. But the better, because we're following their giving trends over time, we're seeing the organizations that they gave to and the cadence in which they gave. And but if they're able to really give the very best direction that they can after having talked with their family, those are the best scenarios.
Okay.
So I want to go back and touch on a couple things that you touched on, Rob, and on successor advisors. So again, looking at the donor advice fund, so compared to a private foundation, you do have through us the successor advisor, you have additional generations you can put on there. For your viewers that have a commercial DAF, I would encourage them to look at the fine print on the commercial DAF because the agreements, the standard agreements, if you don't do if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's on a commercial DAF, you can inadvertently allow the corporate DAF to take over that money.
Right.
If you haven't lined up the successor advisors. And on many commercial DAFs, there's limitations on successor advisors. So again, that's an advantage of working with commercial foundation or with a community foundation is that we have more flexibility on that. You can change them. You're not going to accidentally lose control over that money to the corporate DAF. One other thing I want to touch on, you mentioned private foundations. And there's, with private foundations, you have to do a 990. There's tax returns you have to file. And one thing that people don't really realize with a private foundation is, when you file your 990s, you're listing out all your grants.
Mm-hmm.
So although you might think there's anonymity on a private foundation, it's called a private foundation. Well,
not that tax return, though.
In actuality, it's more public. It is the opposite of being private.
Sure.
Whereas with the community foundation, all of our grants are all combined together. So there's no identification between what fund did what grants. So we're completely anonymous, whereas a private foundation is completely transparent about how you're doing your giving. So that's
there's a big benefit to that.
Yeah.
I think, just especially if you're changing your mind, or if you're just you have these passions, but within your heart, and it's not necessarily something you want to put on your sleeve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which certainly a lot of business owners feel that way. They're wanting to do this because they feel like it's the right thing to do. They're not doing it, for notoriety. So here they're able to do that. That's excellent. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I had never really thought of it that way.
Yeah. And one other thing, a service that we provide, if a donor wants it, we were talking about working with families. You're talking about your situation with your children. We actually can do family meetings, and we have people that are trained to conduct family philanthropic meetings so that you can explore with your children or adult children, what are your philanthropic interests? What are their philanthropic interests? How can you meet both those things in your giving through the fund? So again, we can coordinate a family meeting and we've done so with a number of families, and it's turned out very good, very positive.
Family meetings are great. They can also be very interesting. You really do have to know what you're doing to put those together, because you bring in a whole multitude of generations and personalities, and so you all have folks that are really good at that.
Trained to do it.
Okay.
Exactly.
They go through coursework before we conduct this meeting.
That's a good idea.
Definitely. And we really
as a wealth advisor, I mean, you understand. I mean, it's when you get multiple people in the room, it's interesting what can come out.
Oh, there's no question. Even sometimes, with a husband and wife, there's a certain amount of counseling that's going on there, right? And when you add just another person, it exponentially changes the situation.
Right.
So, you get a full, like I have 4 kids, so you get all 6 of us in a meeting, and you're going to try to keep us to an agenda, and that's hard. It's going to be really hard.
Yes, definitely.
So now I'm gonna flip the conversation just a second on private foundation. So we were talking about, things that are encouraging private foundations. When, over time, a private foundation can run its course. And we have the ability so that if somebody gets tired of all the tax returns, working with lawyers, meeting all the regulations on the giving, if that private foundation's run its course, they can actually roll that into a donor advised fund at the community foundation.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh yeah. So
it's probably not easy. It's kind of hard to wind down a foundation.
You have to do it right.
Yeah.
You have to do it right, and we can assist in that. And we'll work with. And again, this is something we've done several times. And prominent people in town, just got tired of having to deal with all that.
Sure.
That activity, and sometimes. What can happen with a private foundation, it gets set up and it has a mission, and unfortunately sometimes the children aren't interested in carrying that on after their parents pass. It's sad. It's sad.
Well, it changes,
but it can happen.
Yeah.
But one of the key byword for the foundation is donor intent.
Okay.
So that's the great, that's the thing we're really good at, is that when a donor comes in and they establish a fund, we document what that donor intent is. Okay.
Kind of like an investment policy statement.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it's similar.
Yeah, for sure.
But it really is. It's a fiduciary responsibility of the foundation to carry out donor intent. So that's our byword. Whenever somebody comes in, it's our job to execute on donor intent. So with a private foundation, that dream that the original founders of the private foundation can be carried out by the community foundation. So even though their children may not be interested in making those grants to whatever organization, whatever interest, that can be carried out by the community foundation. So we can function in that behalf, and their original intent can be carried out.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so DAFs, donor advised funds, I keep using the acronym, really have a ton of flexibility to them that I think, at least in my experience, doesn't get fully utilized a lot of the time.
Right.
And I know that y'all do a great job of adding process to it, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of process. I'm a big fan of discovery, where you go through a process whereby you figure out what your values are and align them with what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what we do all day, every day here.
Right.
That's what y'all do as well.
Yes.
Really, really cool stuff. Well, this has been good.
It's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, I think this kind of information, I'm telling you, I think there are a lot of people that really want to do this kind of thing, but they just don't know where the resources are or know who there is to guide them. And y'all are starting with that. And all the great good that y'all do in our community, putting those resources together with those organizations that can provide so many benefits to our communities. It's just huge. You got to feel good about what you do, right?
We
Right.
do. We have the best jobs.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So how old are the grandkids now? You're down there taking. Are they still old enough or young enough that you're running around ragged?
We're having lots of fun. It's T-ball time, so it's
Okay.
It's 5 and 7. So
Okay.
So,
Oh my gosh.
they're both little boys, so it's a lot of fun. And I've got 2 grand dogs, so we're either babysitting grand dogs or we're babysitting grandkids. So
Yeah. Which do you prefer? I already know the answer. Obviously.
I like them all, actually.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Sometimes the dogs are easier to handle than the grandkids.
Okay. Yeah, that's fun. And then you come up here fairly often, or do you get to kind of commute with your computer? Like
I'm the product of Zoom. I mean, it is. Can you believe it? I mean, I never would have guessed we would. People could work as effectively remotely as what we can. So I stay on Zoom quite a bit, and we coordinate with man and I coordinate pretty much on a daily basis. So it's
Oh, I agree.
Very well.
It is amazing. I mean, just how much more productive we can be, and it spreads, where our people and where our clients can be. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, good. So if somebody wants to get in contact with y'all and have further discussions along these lines, what's the best way to reach out?
Sure. I mean, definitely contacting us at the foundation. My email is alewis, Lewis, at northtexascf.org. That's
Okay.
also our website address, and I definitely encourage everyone to check out our website at www.northtexascf.org. It's chock full of information, some really great, easy to find stuff for both themselves and their advisors. We work very closely with CPAs, attorneys, wealth advisors here locally and across the country to help clients figure out what their best solution is going to be. And so, great information on our website.
Okay, super.
If they have any technical questions, if they're really seriously considering selling businesses and they they want to explore what are the next steps, feel free to contact me as well. So,
Okay, well, great, Stan. Thanks for making the trip up to be with us today.
My pleasure.
And what a great session. Thank you so much for shedding light on something that I think so many of us just don't fully understand about donor advised funds and what y'all do. So, yeah, of course. So, a reminder to those of y'all out here, we put one of these out every other week, and you can subscribe on your favorite platform to hear more about the things that we think are important for business owners who are contemplating a transition, because it can get complicated, but if you do it right and you do some of this planning and you get the right people on your team before you get ready to do it, it can be an incredible experience. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a great week. Take care.